Hi, everyone. Thank you guys for having me. As Larry said, my name is Ellie Puckett, and I am the CEO at Resonate Recordings. We work with businesses, corporations, nonprofits, and creators to help share stories that matter through the power of podcasting. So whether that be your mission or true crime, it doesn't matter. We help you share that story. But we are not here to talk about my role as CEO at Resonate. We are actually here to talk more about how I got here. We are actually recording this live, and it will be available on the Renegade Ventures podcast and on YouTube. So if you have your phone, I'll put up a QR code later, but please go follow the Renegade Ventures podcast. And a year and a half ago, I decided to, well, I guess it was like 3 years ago, I decided to buy a business. And a year and a half ago, I became an acquisition entrepreneur when I partially bought a portion of Resonate from the original founder and took over as managing owner and CEO. I had spent 10 years in the technology startup industry as a founder, an early employee, and in entrepreneurial support. I did things like Larry and Lisa Bajornes. And when I discovered acquisition entrepreneurship, I was floored by how much I did not know, as spending my entire career in this space of educating entrepreneurs. And so when I discovered that, I started a podcast called Renegade Ventures, and the goal was to educate women about buying, selling, and building businesses as assets. And that's why I was looking for a business to buy. That podcast and that journey ended up leading me to Resonate Recordings, which was a podcast production company, and I ended up buying that. But enough about me and how I got here. I want to talk about these amazing two other entrepreneurs that are up here with me and how they got to acquisition entrepreneurship as well. And so they're both very impressive, and they both actually were in the technology startup industry as well before they got to acquisition. And so I think that the best way for us to start off this conversation today is to let you kind of talk about your journey from technology to acquisition and how you got here. So Brian, why don't you kick us off?
So I'm super happy to be here today. I'm traditionally a software entrepreneur. I've been involved in startups, either doing them myself, investing in them, advising them, and that's been the majority of my career. I had a software company in the digital science space that I founded here, had for about 15, 16 years, and sold it to out-of-town private equity. That was 2018. I started another software company, which I have now, called Adofficial, which is involved in automating video production. And I started that in 2021, still have it, just didn't scale the way I wanted to. So the first business I sold I was 47. I'm 53 now. Feel like I still have a career to follow through on, and did some soul searching and decided that startups, that's not what I was going to do next. So I started looking into acquiring businesses, met kind people like Lydia who walked me through that, and that's what I'm, in addition to running and playing around with software, which I still do, looking for businesses to buy.
Hi everyone, I'm Lydia Henshaw. And thank you so much for the opportunity to be on a panel. I'm honored to be next to these two right here. And this is so fun. I love the storytelling that comes with the journeys and getting to share stories. So I like to say I build systems that solve problems, from whether it's stopping drugs at the border or whether it's scaling a warehouse. Academically, my background is undergrad in business, MBA, and then later a PhD in organizational behavior. And when I got that PhD, I studied manufacturing organizations, logistics, and really how to add innovation into manufacturing. So I've always had a love for systems, and I've always had a love for the humans behind the systems. And so what I learned academically as I was working in corporate jobs was really how to make teams perform well together and how to lead teams. And then I had an opportunity to move to DC, where I worked with the government and really, fell in love with the opportunity to actually work with tech systems and how to bring tech systems and teams together to build systems that scale and solve really important problems. So whether that was with Department of Defense, we did drug interdiction work at the border, U.S. Geological Survey, we were doing sensor monitoring for volcanoes, we were doing systems for helping earthquake victims recover after Haiti. So really big problems that needed strong decision support systems through tech, but also really strong leaders at the same time. And so after I did kind of filled those roles, I realized that I'm not a good W-2 employee. I want to have control and I want to have ownership. And so I wanted to be able to really lead the technology and lead the teams and solve the problems in the way that I thought they needed to be solved. And so that led me to 2 different startups. One was my first startup, which my husband Patrick and I bootstrapped and then successfully sold to a publicly traded company in the agriculture space. And then after that, I saw a big problem in the mental health space pre-COVID and then started a venture-backed startup, which is a vote winner. So shout out to that. And then we successfully sold that to a private equity group here in the Midwest. And so after that, I wanted to take some time to just create, not anything business related. So I took some time off and wrote a historical fiction novel because why not? Successfully published it. And then I wanted to get back into the business game on my own terms. And so from a family standpoint, my husband, Patrick, who's the better half of Team Henshaw, he founded and runs a very successful venture capital fund here in Louisville called Render Capital. So they're top decile. They're focused on high growth, high tech startups. And so as a family, we wanted to have a balanced portfolio of investments. And so I wanted to enter into the steady, enduring middle market space because then we have the balance of high growth tech investments. And then we also have the investment in the middle market. So that's what led me to start looking. So 3 years ago, I started looking for a business to buy. 18 months ago, I found Journey Warehousing. And I want to give you our mission, and I want to say it correctly, so I have my notes here. Because we've made some big changes at Journey, and we'll talk through that today. But our mission at Journey is to demonstrate excellence in logistics and to be an instrument of growth for our employees, our customers, and our communities. And we provide essential services for industrial manufacturers and suppliers. And the reason that I want to be so specific about that is because since my acquisition 18 months ago, we've doubled revenue, we've doubled profit, and we've actually expanded into a second location in Birmingham, Alabama. And so it's been a really fun journey from there. So thank you for having me.
So I actually want to dive in and ask one more kind of question on this topic, just because I think all of us have founded and started businesses, and we made the decision to go a different path this time. And Lydia, you kind of touched on it. Brian, I want to make sure I ask you, why did you choose to do acquisition entrepreneurship this time versus starting something else?
Yeah. So for me, after going through the last startup, and again, it just hasn't scaled the way I wanted, and that's just part of the game. I just decided and looked at what I wanted to do next, and was that continuing on in startups. And what I did was I really stole the page out of Traction, the book Traction. You guys might be familiar with that. And there's a 10-year simple plan in there for businesses, and I did that for myself, and I also had my wife do it. So it was simple things like, what do I want? Where do I want to live? What do I want my daily life to look like? And the same for her. We've got 4 kids. Where are they going to be in 10 years? And then 5 years, 3 years, 1 year. And just decided that startups and the grind of startups, either raising capital, investing in themselves, and the work that it takes, the type of work, this is not easy, by the way, this is a tremendous amount of work, but it's just the type of work that wasn't what I wanted to do. So I also thought deeply about what happened after I sold my business. It was moved out of town, actually consolidated and moved to Tampa, and a great deal of the wealth, talent, and goodwill that goes along with any business that's usually sold out of town, and this happens a lot in our region, that it leaves as well. And so that kind of all rolled up to, I think we have a lot of healthy, good businesses here that are ripe for acquisition and might need the technology aptitude that I bring to the table, and also not really want to participate in out-of-town acquisition. And so those things exist, and that's what I've chosen to participate in. It just rolls, it's really a lifestyle, and what I want to do in my career. It's choosing your career, which Lydia, I mean, you did a great job because I know that's how you rolled into your business. So,
Lydia, do you have anything to add? Kind of, you started to talk a little bit about choosing acquisition because of the balance between, if you have a partner that is in the startup world, balancing it out. But any other reasons why you decided the acquisition path this time rather than the start path?
Yeah, so I am a huge believer that if you've already done something, you can always go back and do that again. And life is so short, and I know that sounds so cliche, but it really is. And I want to say this to the students that are here too. It's like you're about to enter this huge world, and I feel like the world at times can say, like, you're going to have to fit into these rules, and you have to play by these things, and you have to do X, Y, and Z to be successful. And for me, at least, I have always come into things through the back door. And so the jobs that I've gotten, the startups that I founded, and it's always just been by having a big dream and the belief that I can do it with help, obviously with help, not by myself, but I just believe if I've done it before, I can always go back and get another job. There's always going to be a job out there that I can get if I want to make sure I can pay my bills, right? Or we can survive as a family. I can always start another startup. It's fun. We've done it. I've done it before. You know the pattern. Once you start to kind of match the pattern in industries and startups, and you can get funding again, and you just kind of repeat that model. And so I've never bought a business, and really, I have a heart to grow enduring jobs and communities. And I think that there is a really big opportunity in small business and middle market businesses to create incredible jobs that give people the stability to pay their apartment rent and to put a down payment on a house and to buy a new car and to take a vacation and to do things that help their family grow and help their family thrive. And so for me, it was kind of a mixture of those things of like missionally, I want to create a place that people are incredibly proud to work at. And it's easier to start that when you're fixing something that's broken, which is, there were parts of Journey that it's been really easy to make some changes at because we had opportunities, but also knowing you can always go back and do what you've done before. So why not try something new and see what happens?
Yeah, I think that it's really interesting that there's a kind of a through line here that we're going to get to at the end, but there's this perfect alignment between where you were at personally in your entrepreneurial journeys and where you were at in your home life. My journey personally also took into the fact that I had small children. I also carried our health insurance. I had a stable job in the startup community, which sounds insane. Because I was definitely laid off while pregnant, which was not a big deal because it was the right call for the startup. But I knew that acquisition was, I would be acquiring my salary. I knew that I needed income, and so starting wasn't a good option. I knew that I needed a health insurance, so I knew I needed 5 employees. I needed something that met those things. And so there was that part, but there was also this like building lasting communities, keeping businesses in our communities that have been here. And so that's neat that all of us kind of came to that similar conclusion. Okay, so let's imagine there are people in this audience, which I know there are because I have met and had coffees with several of you, that are acquisition curious. And what are the first steps that each of you took once you decided that this is something that you wanted to pursue? What were those very first steps?
So I already touched on one, which was just what do I want my life to look like in work? And I think that's super important. Once you have that defined, that really helps to refine what you're even looking to do. So as a tech entrepreneur going into sort of legacy industries or traditional industries, I was kind of boiling the ocean a little bit, and it's like, how do I get that down to something less daunting? So I first defined what I wanted my life to be like around work, then really took a hard look at strengths and weaknesses and had past employees, friends help me in doing that to get an outside opinion of it. And what does that look like? I read a bunch of books and things like that, just did some work on myself, which I think is important. And once you have those things done, then it's about being serious to potential buyers and being serious to their intermediaries. So as someone who's sold a business, that's critically important. You'll get calls, if you own a business, you'll get calls by people that want to buy it. And it's pretty, for me, it's pretty immediate if they're serious, meaning are they prepared to even close the deal? How much time am I going to be wasting on this, or is it an actual opportunity? So I had to prepare myself to be serious, and that meant meeting with the bank, having my team together, lawyers, CPAs, and friends to help me when I needed a sounding board so I could be serious when it came time for the opportunity. So those are the things that I would say that I did.
Yeah, I did those same things as well. And then also just defining your focus. So what type of business are you looking for geographically, industry-wise, size-wise, and a very kind of loose set of criteria. And well, I'm sure we'll touch on this more as we go on, but I would say in that stage, progress is so much greater than perfection because I continued to evolve what that looked like, and I didn't really stray from it, but it just continued to get more and more refined. And so I would say the most important thing is starting out at a macro level. Generally, what size of a business do you want to buy? Generally, what region do you want to operate in? I started national, and then I started with certain criteria in a business size and business age. And I knew I did not want to do anything direct to consumer because that's not where I've ever played, and I have no interest in playing there. I've always been a business-to-business person. I've always been interested in that type of industry. So for me, those were just kind of some loose criteria. Those were some loose things. But then right after that, once I had kind of the elevator script on what I was looking for generally, I hung the shingle and I talked to anyone and everyone about the fact that I wanted to buy business. I'm in the market. Do you know anyone? Please tell me. And then I met with business owners. So met with business brokers, met with business owners, met with I cold called people just to learn about their business, joined a community, an online community that kind of gave resources. And so once I had that general framework, just like with anything in startups and business, you can't hold on to the idea inside of the white walls because you're going to start to pet your idea and love it. And if you don't take it to market, when someone calls your baby ugly, you're going to get really offended. And it's like, look, you got to get it out there. And it's the same with this idea of finding a business. You have to know that you're selling yourself to the business owner, and you're selling yourself to their team. So always be selling, like Honora said, you're always selling, but this time you're selling yourself because there are 10 other yous that are looking for that same business to buy right now. And they have different resources, they have different expertise, but you just have to convince them that you're the best one for the deal.
Absolutely. I think that's great advice. And I would add, one of the books that I feel like I recommend the most is called Buy Then Build by Walker Diebel. And it is a great starting point to help you define what that business type, size that you're looking for. It's a really good entry starting point to this journey for you. I'm gonna ask you each to. This was originally a question for Brian, but I'm going to go ahead and make you do it too. So, and I'll start by giving mine. What was your elevator pitch for what you were looking for? And then he is still looking. So everyone know that when you are looking, you need the whole world to know you are looking because the business owners need to be private that they are looking about selling. They have to be silent, so you have to be loud. And so what I was looking for is I wanted a business that did over $1 million in revenue, over $250,000 in EBITDA. And so I knew that business could hold my salary. That I wasn't looking for huge because I knew I could only come up with $50,000 as a down payment. So me personally could come up with $50,000 as a down payment. So I knew that I could only pay about $500,000 for a company. So that's how I got to it. It works just like a home loan, y'all. It works just like a home loan. You need to come up with your 10% down and figure it out from there, okay? So that was mine. From there, I was $1 million in revenue, $250,000, about $500,000 was my price point, give or take a little. I wanted to have 5 employees, and I wanted them to already have a health insurance plan. And I actually really didn't care what it did. I looked at a bounce house company. I looked at a sheet metal manufacturer. I looked at a couple other random things. All right, what was your kind of definition of what you were looking for? And then Brian, I'm gonna end so they remember yours. All right.
So like Ellie said, everyone needs to know that you're selling. I will say that, business brokers are a great resource to find the businesses that aren't silent, but it just comes at a different price point, right? And so just like a house that's on the market being represented by a realtor versus a house that's not on the market or is for sale by owner. You're going to get a different type of a deal possibly, or knocking on someone's door and asking them if their house is for sale. So I was looking for a business in the industrial space, B2B. I was looking nationally, and then I wanted something that was $10 to $30 million in revenue. And at least 10% profit, ideally more, but something that if it had an opportunity, and something that had an opportunity for positive growth if there were systems implemented into the business. And so that's, again, one of the reasons why I wanted to look in the industrial space, because I think there's a lot of opportunity and innovation that systems just haven't been put in place to improve that. So that was roughly my range. And then in terms of other criteria, I wanted it to have an operator, and generally at that size of a business, you do have an operator, because I didn't want the day-to-day to depend on me. And so I wanted to be able to come in and add where I add value is the systems level, is the team building, is the coaching, and really helping the organization think so much bigger than they're able to at the current time. So I knew that if I was managing the day-to-day, I was not the right person to manage the day-to-day. So that's where I started.
So I started out a lot like Lydia. Actually met with Lydia really early, looking nationwide and trying to figure out how my skill sets applied to different industries that I was not really exposed to. I mean, I've been doing startups, scaling them, hopefully selling them for 20-something years. So as I went about this, I was creating a list of things that I didn't want more than I wanted, honestly, to try to narrow it down. I'm also a B2B guy. I've always done enterprise sales, so I knew I wanted to do that. So no home services, nothing like that. As far as the size of the business, I agree with Lydia. I wanted to have an operator in place, and I still do. So that generally takes you to a size of at least $1 million EBITDA, probably $3 to $4 million in EBITDA, which is what I could substantiate. But typically, enterprise value under 15 million. That's what I'm looking to do. No more than 200 miles away from Louisville. I want to live in Louisville. I'm not moving. The closer, the better. An operator in place, as we said, so that I'm not completely dependent or jumping into a business that I don't understand, and expected to solve a lot of problems that I couldn't possibly solve right then. So that's really important. I look for things like, what is it about this business that I can't possibly solve, or is there an operator? And if those things exist and there's not an operator and I can't solve this problem, I'm out. So that it took a while. I've been starting this journey. Started October of last year, and it took me a while to get this thing distilled down to having real opportunities and be able to go out and even talk to owners, approach them. Of late, I've been interested in construction services. That's not GC. These are services that support construction, that oftentimes have contracts available to them, are low CapEx, and have EBITDA margins in the 20-25% range. I've looked into warehousing and light assembly, no manufacturing, no heavy manufacturing. So I'm looking at all those things, but I'll look at really anything still. But those are the three places that I've been focusing in the last 3 months. And I will tell you this, since being able to focus, the opportunities you find really accelerate. So that's the one thing I'd make sure to leave to you guys. The faster you can distill this down to something you can act on, the better you'll be, the more opportunities you'll find.
Well, I was just going to say, the world expands as you narrow in your focus, and it's just like anything. It's like when you buy a new car, you start to see that same car everywhere because that's it's top of mind. It's a similar thing from a business standpoint. It's like once you've narrowed that focus and you know exactly what you're looking for, your brain will start. And if you're good about saying no to other things, your brain will start narrowing in, and you'll start connecting with people and taking the meetings that will lead you to the zone of the types of businesses that you're looking for. So the opportunities are absolutely out there. And I would say if you're in the market and you're looking and you're like, oh my goodness, I'm so behind in this, don't let fear drive you to a purchase, first of all, because that's a huge investment. And so don't do it out of fear, but also don't feel like you're behind the 8 ball, because there are businesses out there today that will get bought. There are going to be businesses that go on the market tomorrow. There will be a business out there that will be available for you in the time that makes sense. So I would say just don't let this let urgency drive you, but don't do it from a fear standpoint, which I felt personally, so which is why I'm sharing it in case anyone else feels that.
Yeah, I think one of the better pieces of advice I got was on the first offer. I made an offer on a bounce house company, and there was a licensing deal in there that I wasn't comfortable with at all, and I really thought I could negotiate myself around it, and couldn't. And I had someone say, you've got to figure out where your line is to walk away. And I walked, but it felt like, oh my gosh, I was already laid off. I already needed a job. I had all this urgency pushing, and it just wasn't the right call. And you don't want to make that level of investment without that. Oh, absolutely. This is way better fit. But okay, we are running out of time, and I do want to get to some questions. So I'm going to do you get 2 lines to answer these 2 questions because they're important. Okay. All right. First one, Lydia, what was the biggest surprise or hardest thing that you've had to do in the first 18 months after buying a business? I know I'm only giving you a hot second to say it.
Okay. Biggest surprise is the amount of innovation that we discovered inside of the company that we could offer. So not knowing what we could offer to the market, but once we got in, seeing a lot of opportunity. Hardest thing, controlling the rate of change. Going from startup to middle market, you change the water service provider inside the warehouse, and people who've been there for 29 years really don't like that. So you change the doormats, and so the rate of change is much slower. So respecting that and balancing that with the business's needs.
And Brian, I want to get your key takeaways or the main points that you want someone to know about if they're entering into this space.
So there's a lot of repetitive tasks, sort of low-value tasks that go along with the search. Things like converting PDFs or filling out NDAs, all these things, or even replying to brokers or to owners. And so if you I'm not charging anything, but if you just sign up for that, I'll send you some information and unlock that stuff for you. So feel free to do that. But that was probably the most surprising thing, is how little technology has been applied to lower middle market M&A. And the other thing is the friction between first-time buyers and first-time sellers. And as a community, I hope that we can all sort of socialize. You're right, it's scary to sell a business, and you don't want to tell your employees, and you're worried about that. But there has to be a way to lower the friction between first-time buyers and first-time sellers in Louisville, so we can keep our businesses here and not watch them walk away. So those are the 2 takeaways for me, I guess.
All right. I don't actually think, because Larry's already standing there, that I have time to ask people for questions. So here's what we're going to do. I can give more time and stand here and answer any questions privately if you have them. I don't know about you all. I can't commit for you all. But we're gonna have some QR codes that will show you how to get to my podcast, get to his resources, get to Resonate or any of us. And then the last thing I want to say is that please take the time to reach out. Please follow my podcast, Renegade Ventures. It is aimed at women, but I'll tell you right now that we're still rocking 45% men who are actually listening to it. So please go check it out. Season 1 has more education-based resources, while Maggie Harlow and I took more of the story approach on season 2. And you can find it wherever you find your podcasts. And I just want to thank everyone for being here. Thank you, Larry, for having us and letting us talk about this topic. It's important that we bring it into our economic development and entrepreneurial spaces, because a lot of people don't realize that this is possible. I thought it was more expensive than it was. And when we throw out numbers like millions, I know that might sound intimidating to everyone, but I'm telling you, it takes less money than you think, and you can figure it out. So if you're interested, come talk to us about how you figure it out. That's it.